It's not happening for me today. Hello and welcome to today's video. I have decided to focus this very much based upon the amount of requests that I have received upon the application process towards going in the teacher education field. Now personally, I went through the PGCE route based upon the type of person that I am. I think that the PGCE route definitely favoured me more than perhaps some of the other routes that are available. That does not mean in any way, shape or form that they are not credible. However, it very much depends upon the style of person that you are. So before you even watch this video, I would highly recommend researching and looking into the opportunities that other avenues may provide for you. So in today's video, I'm going to be exploring and talking you through kind of my advice and what things you probably need to consider before you apply for a PGCE and even in the application process. To start off with, you've got to ask yourself the question of why are you doing this? So you are sat probably watching this right now and you might have considered this for the last few months, the last few years. You might have always known that you were going to be a teacher, but you've got to even ask yourself right now, why are you doing this? I'm going to be really honest from a teacher's perspective, and this is a popular opinion from many teachers that I know, that people don't go into teaching because of the money. And I don't think many teachers actually go into the profession due to the holidays. As you're probably already aware, there is a massive dropout of teachers within the first 5 years of the start of their teaching career. And that's probably due to a lot of different reasons. However, if from day one you aren't too sure about why you are taking up this profession, that's the thing you need to ask yourself first. Secondly, be aware that PGCEs are university and school-based placements. During the first few weeks of your PGCE, and this is based from my knowledge and understanding from BCU, as that's where I completed my PGCE, the first few weeks you will primarily be based in your university. And that's because they're going to go through some core skills and some core concepts, essentially that knowledge to equip you to go into your first placement. And that just doesn't stop there. You will start off by having a structure. It's different for every university, so this is where you want to kind of research or ask those questions based upon the university you're looking into. But you will have a mixture of university scheduled lectures or mentor sessions alongside your hours within the school placement that you have been attached to. Now for BCU, this meant that the first term, so up until Christmas, you were at your placement for 4 days a week, and on the Friday you always came back to university. And after Christmas there are a few weeks as well that you were back at the university having those core key catch-ups with your mentors, your fellow PGCE students, and actually learning more about the course. Next, look into your funding. Now there's lots of different varieties and opportunities that you can go down towards to receive the funding that will be needed for your qualification. Now, depending upon the type of PGCE that you do, primary or secondary, and the subject more for secondary, there are actually bursaries available that can pay for your whole tuition based upon the subject that you choose. Now, this updates all the time, and this very much depends upon your university as well. So, for example, maths, English and science, there are often many bursaries that are available that will pay for your tuition. Other subjects, it might not be the whole tuition fee that you are granted with. However, a bursary might be provided that will supplement or provide some of those costs. However, same as when you did your degree, where you went down the student finance route, this is still available towards a PGCE. Next, experience. Now, it is obvious to consider that your university will ask you when you are considering doing a PGCE what experience you actually have. Now, of course, you're not probably going to be sat there with years of teaching experience underneath your belt. That's not exactly what they were expecting. When I started my PGCE, I had just come straight out of university, and obviously I had just finished my degree, so I didn't have that much experience in the classroom. However, I was mindful before applying that this was going to be something that they would ask for. So I made sure that I got several hours work within a school, observing, volunteering, classrooms, so that when I went into that interview process, and even before that, the application process, I could confirm the type of experience that I have already received. It's important to know as well that when you are applying towards secondary, they will get you to consider perhaps primary experience, and every university is different with this. Now, with my university, they actually just wanted, this is at the time that I was studying, that secondary experience. The primary experience they actually scheduled throughout a period within the first few weeks of my PGCE. So don't worry if you're sat there going to do a secondary course and you're panicking, thinking, I've got to get secondary experience, I've got to get primary experience. Actually, the most important thing based from my observations was that secondary experience. The second most important thing would be primary. However, a lot of universities schedule this in towards their timing. Skills tests. Now, you are required to take a numeracy and literacy skills test before you are allowed to continue with your PGCE study. Now, this is something not to take lightly. I would highly advise making sure that you revise, recap, even the basic concepts of numeracy and literacy skills before you go in and take these tests. Because actually, when I took the tests, I remember, for example, in the literacy test, you have to put headphones on and they give you a word to spell. And there were some words that I was like, oh my gosh, I would not expect this for a literacy test when I'm thinking about, would I perhaps use this vocab in a normal sentence every day? No. So don't take these lightly. Don't book them too early. There is no rush to get your skills tests done. You obviously have to get them done before you start your PGCE, or the university will keep prompting you that you need to get these skills tests passed in order to continue with your study. I actually experienced in my PGCE that there were people who were accepted onto the course with the promise that they could pass their skills tests. However, because they had failed their skills tests, they weren't able to take the process any further. So that's why I'm saying, do your practice, take your time with it, but they are an important part of being able to qualify to do a PGCE course. So obviously when it comes towards a PGCE, be mindful that there are assignments on top. The reason why there are assignments on top is that essentially a PGCE can give you those course credits in order to go and do a master's qualification. Doing a PGCE obviously requires you to do some sense of study that will be in the form of assignments. Now at BCU, these assignments obviously were all centred around education, but each one was very different. You have your school placement assignments, whereby you are not necessarily graded in a sense, you kind of are graded, but a PGCE qualification is obviously a pass or fail qualification. You will obviously get marks and percentages within the assignments that you complete. However, essentially you're either going to get your PGCE or you're not going to get your PGCE. So the assignments are kind of tailored obviously towards the completion of the master's element. However, they are more there to stretch your thinking and to stretch your understanding of education within the whole realm. So for example, at BCU, the last assignment that you complete, I completed, this might have changed, was a research study. So you could decide during that last term of your school placement a particular aspect of education, teaching that you are interested in, and you can take part in a research study that you conduct yourself, that you are essentially trying to find something out within the school that you have been based in or the schools that you have been based in. So it's just to be mindful of that if you are considering taking a PGCE, there is a balance towards getting those assignments complete and actually being inside the school itself and doing everything that a teacher would be expected to do. So you've done your research about your course, you've done your research in regards to PGCEs, what they entail, and you're sat there thinking, right, I've got my application, oh my gosh, I've been given an interview. Now, it's very difficult for me to sit here and say this is exactly what to do for an interview, because every interview for a PGCE I think is slightly different, because it's going to be tailored upon the university that you decide to study alongside. However, my honest advice when it comes towards an interview is just to be yourself, but to be prepared to justify why you want to go into teaching. I remember at BCU there was a scenario where I had an interview that was opposite the subject mentor, and I really had to defend my subject. So I obviously not only had to show my understanding of what the subject is, but I had to really demonstrate the passions that I have towards my subject and teaching within education. So essentially, they have accepted you for an interview because everything on paper matches. Actually, with teachers, what they want to see is that the passion and the justifications not only are there on paper, but also are there in a face-to-face conversation. You might have certain skills, tests, things that you take place in during the day. However, I wouldn't stress too much about the test scenario of the interview. I would focus more towards actually staying true towards yourself. So when you are in front of your interviewee, I was getting mixed up. When you are in front of the person giving the interview, you want to make sure that you ask those fundamental questions before you are accepted onto the course. So I was quite lucky that on the day after I had done my interview and the kind of test style things that took place on the day, that I was actually notified whether they were going to accept me or not. I didn't actually have to wait that long at all. The reason why I was notified on the day is not because the university are trying to push you to accept their course. However, as I've previously notified you earlier on within the video, there's only so many places that the university can take per subject. Whilst you're still there, whilst you are in front of the mentor or whoever decides to do the interview, it's really important that you ask any questions that you are unsure about on the day. Now, everybody is different. Every question that somebody might ask might be different to the next person, but there's a few things that you might want to consider. One of them being travel. Now, you should expect that during your PGCE you will be put on, if not one placement, but two placements that are going to be in two different catchment areas. Now, they were very, very mindful at BCU that if you could drive, they would obviously consider those types of placements compared to those who had public transport. However, just because you can drive does not necessarily mean that they are going to place you in a placement that is an hour away. Just because you don't drive, that does not mean that they're going to get you a school that is 10 minutes down the road. These are why you want to ask those fundamental questions, for example, about travel and what this might mean for you. Because in my two placements, I can drive. My first placement, it wasn't that far away. Obviously, with travel in the rush hour in the morning, it takes slightly longer. So I obviously would recommend with teaching getting in early, like I always did anyway. However, even with leaving early in the morning, it would take me around 20 to 25 minutes to drive into work. My second placement was further away, so this took me around about 40 to 45 minutes drive. So I would highly recommend asking those questions, and one of them might be travel for you. And last but not least, I've already mentioned it before, but when you're applying or considering going into this field, I cannot emphasise enough that they just want to see who you are, so showcase that. And that doesn't just mean in the interview. I would highly recommend doing that throughout your PGCE, because your PGCE year is that opportunity not only for you to learn, but for you to grow and really establish the type of teacher that you want to be within the classroom. And when you're figuring this out, the most important thing that I would emphasise with all this is to stay true to yourself, because essentially you're going after this PGCE year, hopefully you're going to be going towards interviews to be accepted into an NQT year of teaching, and sometimes it is competitive depending upon the subject that you teach, and interviews are always competitive. You know that there's only one job and there might be 2, 3, 4, if not more people going for the same job. So if you are staying true to yourself from the get-go, this is something that you can always keep with you even throughout your PGCE year. So hopefully this has been useful for some things to consider when you are applying towards your PGCE. As ever, I'm not a teaching guru, I'm simply somebody that has been in the education field for quite a few years now, and there's some useful things that I didn't know when I first started teaching or applying for to PGCE that I wish I knew at the time. As always, if you have any questions or recommendations for any videos that you would like to see, please don't feel afraid to comment below. It gives me some guidance towards the types of videos and content that you would like to see throughout the upcoming weeks. I'm going to try to upload weekly, if not once a month. Obviously, teachers are always very busy, but I'm going to try as best as I can to upload these as frequently as possible. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.